Oh,
welcome back to Solomon Sports
hey,
with your host, Jason.
And forgot my name. Shawn.
Shawn.
There it is.
Shawn.
It's on the screen.
There you go. My bad. Oh, I forgot. You read that.
I do read that.
That's right. That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. Can you read the top part?
No, it's got live one dot Tina.
Okay,
it's
so
counting.
we're going to be talking about something very interesting here on the porch today. Thank y'all for tuning in. So I think a lot of people may have heard this a little bit. Maybe you haven't. I think it really depends on who you're friends with on Facebook and Twitter and stuff. And so Chandler Moore, he is a singer of Maverick City Music. A lot of people share the musical videos. I've never watched one of them. Never seen anything in regards to him. The only thing I know him from was he was in a song on Justin Bieber's Freedom EP, which I really enjoyed. And the song that he was on, he did a phenomenal job on. So I didn't realize this was that same person until someone said later. But he just recently got married, so congratulations to him and his lady. That's always a great thing. And as any other married couple would do, they posted photos online. And so wanted to share one of those photos with you folks just to see.
Okay, so are you going to put that photo up?
Yeah.
Okay, so definitely if you've got younger viewers,
yeah,
you don't.
No, it shouldn't be.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, we'll discuss whether or not.
From our show perspective, we're going to give you the forewarning that this may be content that you don't want younger viewers to see.
Yes, so it's almost video-ish. So this is what the actual that's what it is. And that's not the only.
Oh, there it is.
That's not the only one. So there's, they took lots of photos. So this one's got the ring finger, and so there's different photos that they took. It wasn't just like that one, but the idea that a lot of people were really concerned with was, is this really appropriate? And so the first thing I wanted to talk about is, right and wrong. I think there's, sin or not sin versus whether or not we should do it as believers. So the first question is, Shawn, if who you are today as a Christian, as a believer, would you post a photo like that on social media if you were a social media person?
So I think the problem is that first off, I don't do social media. So the other thing is that normally I'm pretty reserved about what I share in general. Usually it's just my artwork that I put out there. My family stuff is my family stuff, and I usually leave that at home. My mother having passed away, father having passed away, I'll post old pics of them. So in general, I'm not the kind of person that shares a lot of my personal family stuff. So that out of the way. If I was a young man and getting married all over again, maybe even as successful in terms of a public persona as this guy is. I mean, I don't know who he is, but no.
So I do want to share just a couple more.
Just
a couple more photos, just so I'm not saying this guy is completely inappropriate. I mean, he had some other photos that were very tasteful and I thought were great. especially from a Christian's perspective. So this is a couple more from the wedding. He had one that looked like he was almost in worship or prayer beforehand. At this point together, they were praying. Here he was, just breaking down in tears, I guess, from, joy and excitement. So I did want to share those because I didn't want to represent him negatively. If it seemed like I did that, I apologize. But that was one photo among many that he shared. And so I did want to point that out. But I think in general, I would not do it myself. I think a good point that Shawn and Grant had made when we were having discussion last week was he was saying that, I guess he's okay if his family members were to see him like that, like his mom and dad, maybe grandma, if they're alive. I'm thinking like, my pastor.
Hey, grandma.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking like everybody can see this.
Right.
Especially if you're a public figure, everybody can see this. Everybody who listens to your music.
And hey, who knows? Maybe grandma's like, yo, boy, get yours, Sony.
I mean, she might try to give him some advice. I don't know. But
if you grab her hair.
let's try to keep it PG a little bit. It's a little bit.
What?
But in general, though, like
the guy had his wife bent over. And pretending to be doing her from behind.
Yeah,
this might as well be one of our sex on the porch kind of conversations.
I'm sure this is going to get some clicks.
And here's I think the big problem is to me it's a matter of, okay, so you've put this picture up now. What does that do for me? I've seen this picture. Yes, your wife is attractive, and I'm thinking, yeah, boy, grab her hair. Yeah, do that, man. Right? Okay. I'm now having lustful thoughts about him and his wife, or just his wife, or I don't know, maybe just him. But the point is that, it doesn't do anything to edify anybody else. And if anything, it trips people up. It's going to cause people to stumble. Yeah. And we've got scripture that speaks on that, whether we're talking about 1 Corinthians or Mark or Romans. There's several instances in different types of situations, of course, but that encourage us to not cause a brother or a sister to stumble in their walk. And let's face it, is that sex is one of those things that definitely does that. And so when we put that stuff out there, if it was just like him and his wife walking out on the beach and she's in, a skinny little bikini that's barely covering her, that's still going to cause guys to mentally sin. They're going to be thinking, dang, dude, man, she's banging. Oh, man, I bet you getting, whatever. And that's not productive. That doesn't help us. That doesn't help me in my marriage. That doesn't help you in your marriage. It doesn't help us, not even with the problem with objectifying women. Because if anything, especially with that kind of image, it looks like he's objectifying her. Okay. So now that encourages my mindset. If I have that, I'm not saying that I do, but if I have that mindset, it only encourages me to continue down that role. Yeah, well, I'm going to take my wife and do that now, or my girlfriend or whatever, boyfriend or whatever.
Yeah, one of the things that I had thought about was, he's a worship leader. So one, he's got all eyes of all ages, that kind of watch his content. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Two, the world glorifies sex all the time. It is so worship, like sex is
inappropriate ways.
Yeah. Inappropriate sex outside of marriage, or just even sex in general, though, it's worshipped among the world. Like so many of the reasons why, like Paul set certain standards in the church in 1 Corinthians was because people, like, sex was such a huge thing in the Greek world that he had to put all these different things in place to keep Christians away from the possibility of confusing something with sexual connotations, like covering a hair and things like that. So, and it's not any different now. Our world worships sex. It's the way it is. So I feel like one of the issues here is when you get married, he had pictures of them praying together. I feel like some people can misconstrue, oh, now it's okay to worship sex if you're married as a Christian. So now this is something. Now I'm not saying sex is bad. Sex is great within a marriage context, and which in his case it is in a marriage context. So I'm not saying that's even bad. I'm saying you're getting people to the idea of, oh yeah, sex is so great. Like I'm so looking forward to this now. Like this is one of the key components to getting married, and it might have been, but I think it's really tough to really put that as a focal point in your wedding photos online.
Well, and for me, it's just barely a step away from the sex tape. I mean, right now I'm waiting for the sex video. Where's the honeymoon sex video? It should be posted up any minute now, right? I mean, it should be going viral by like right now. It's if you're already going that far in an image, look, you know, even if it's a couple kissing, it's like, okay, they're kissing, but I don't need to like see tongues and mouths gaping and all that other stuff. You know, it needs to be something, you know, just far more vague, I guess you could say. And this is just not vague. You know, I went to a wedding not too long ago where once the pastor had said, now you may kiss the bride, it was kind of like, bruh, you know, I don't need to sit here watching you make out with your lady, you know. That's what the honeymoon's for. Come on, head out the door and take care of that. If that's what you need to go do it, but not here in front of all of us, you know. Give her a nice kiss and head down the aisle. But you know, how much of that do you really need to be putting out there for the public to be viewing? Now, if you want to do that in the privacy of your home, you want to make a sex tape, you want to take what would be considered pornographic pictures, tasteful nudes of you and your wife, I don't really care. Do that. It's a matter of putting it out there for public consumption that's the issue. And I'm not saying that he's doing pornographic stuff, but he's just that one very close step away from it. I mean, I could almost, you know, he could have just slipped that skirt up on that dress real fast, you know, and it just it doesn't do anybody any good. Don't do it.
So here's some of the pushback against maybe what we're saying is, one, you know, society has made sex so what's the word, like weird and taboo, that the church should talk about it more. And I think that's true. We've discussed that on the show.
Well, the church has made sex weird and taboo.
Yeah. So like I said, again, sex is perfectly fine. I mean, if you read Song of Solomon, you see all sorts of stuff in there. And, you know, we don't necessarily rip that part of the Bible out when we give a Bible to kids, but they probably wouldn't be interested in reading it because it's all like, you know, it's all imagery. It's not, and it's kind of somewhat difficult imagery in a lot of instances. But so, you know, it's perfectly fine to have, to talk about, to discuss. But I think what you're saying, Shawn, it does come to the point where if you're an infant in the faith and maybe you had pornographic addictions or you've, you know, had issues.
Forget being an infant in the faith, man. There are pastors that are well known and living, you know, godly lives for the longest time that have had struggles with pornography and sex addictions and stuff like that, that this just goes, you know, and flies in the face of.
Yeah. So for me, it's I think going back to what you said about not tripping your brother up, it's like what are the and this is where, you know, the discussion of wisdom comes in. What makes it a wise thing to do versus what makes it an unwise thing to do? Like if you did pro and con it, I don't know of a whole lot of pros for doing it other than, hey, Christians can have sex too, and you know, in a great way in within a marriage. Now you're telling the world, hey, if you become a Christian, you can still have sex if you're married. Like then it still becomes about the sex. Like every positive thing that I've heard out of this is glorifying sex. Whether it's Christian sex, sex within a marriage, sex in a God-honoring way, it's still about the sex.
And that's fine because again, to me, to a degree, that's fine because again, the church has done so much suppression about sex and communicating it that it becomes more of an issue within Christian marriages because people don't know how to discuss it. That's why we talk about it on the show. And the thing is that even on the show here, we'd let you know ahead of time, hey, this is content that we're going to be talking about, but we're doing it in order to be able to talk about things that we feel like are troubling areas within marriages, within those contexts of those relationships, and discussing what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and those kinds of things. Honestly, and I don't remember the name of the book, but there was like this well-known book that is the pre marriage night, consummation night book for Christians to be able to read. And it has pictures. Now, we're not talking like live pictures of somebody, but illustrations.
Right.
Because there are people that have absolutely no clue what parts and pieces there are and what does what and where things go and whatever's whatever about things. Not to get into it in this particular segment, but to be able to say that you still have to be able to communicate this stuff to somebody. And so there still has to be something there to be able to help them understand what's going on, short of having a coach there that night standing by your bedside saying, okay, now, hey, rah, 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 go Billy, go Joan, whatever the case is. But the point is that, there's an appropriate place and time for some of that kind of content. But this doesn't satisfy any of those kinds of criteria that I would say would be appropriate for putting out there. Is it appropriate for a couple to be able to have a book on how to have better sex? Sure, I think that's fine. That may be something that is of interest to the couple, and they feel like that they need some assistance in that area. Okay, fine, go for that. But you need to make sure that it's in a situation that's conducive for both people feel comfortable, and we've discussed some of those other kinds of criteria before, but this isn't like that. This is me just saying, hey, you know what, here are my wedding photos, look at us praying, look at us crying, look at me doing my wife from behind, and then look at me. What?
Yeah, it didn't fit. Like every bit of content on this channel is mostly like singing, worshiping God, and this just and I understand a Christian couple that has sex that is in a way honoring God, because you're saying, Lord, this is something that we're only doing between us with nobody else, and that's because we made a covenant promise to you as well as to them. So yes, even Christian sex can be a form of honoring God. I don't know if I'd call it worshiping God, because just to be frank, I don't really think much about God during that time. Just I'm be honest, I don't know many people that do. But and that's about as personal as I'll get. But like that's not really in this case. Like, would you do it on the Christian church? And it's because if you wouldn't do it in front of a church audience, especially if you're a public figure, you probably shouldn't do it online. I mean, if you wouldn't go up on stage after the pastor prays in front of whatever congregation's there and do that act to them, then I probably wouldn't do it on Instagram, especially when you got a couple 100,000 viewers and people know your name.
There's a time in Rome that they definitely would have done that, and it would have been perfectly acceptable. But anyway, look, and I think the thing is that we all make mistakes. We all do stuff that maybe we didn't think all the way through. That most recent wedding that I went to, my daughter was involved with. She was one of the bridesmaids, and the photographer, who's a Christian. In fact, he used to be the youth pastor of the church that this couple was getting married in. He was trying to get them to do a pose that frankly was inappropriate. It wasn't like grotesque or anything like that, but it was, my daughter was supposed to be sort of like fawning over the groom, who she's actually related to. and then the other bridesmaid who's pregnant, he's supposed to be looking down at her like, oh, is that mine? And it's like, bruh, I mean, I understand, maybe you might joke about that, somewhere else, but you've got, the bride's family, the groom's family, my baby girl's up on stage. No, we ain't going there. We ain't doing that. It's just not appropriate, right? And again, I understand we all make mistakes. We have lapses in judgment, that sort of thing. But, the thing is that he had at least enough time to be able to say, should I post this or should I not post? Should I take this down? And if
Right.
and Jason, frankly, if you've got it, then it was up too long. Just saying.
Yeah. I think if one of the issues, and this is just conjecture. I can't say for sure this is what it is. I have a bad habit of shock factor. I like shocking people with the things that I might say or do that they might not think I would say or do. And this might be something like that. Like, oh, they think I'm just this worship leader that just, praise God all the time and, all these things. I'm going to do something that's really me.
But I like to get it on.
That's going to shock them. Like, hey, I'm married now. I'm going to be doing things to my wife that, and here's a kind of precursor to it. Here's the preamble to the story.
But again, it's, a preamble to the story. Well, I don't need to know your story. I don't need any preamble to anything that you guys are doing in the bedroom like that. Because if you are, you're sharing far too much of your personal life. And again, why am I viewing this? You're not helping me in my marriage or, my addictions or my issues. You're only hurting my relationships when you're putting this sort of thing out there, because my mind, as worldly as it is, as much of a worldly life as I lived before I was a Christian, it already struggles with those things anyway. That's why I don't go to the beach. I don't need to be tempted visually in any other way. So I'm scrolling through Instagram or Facebook and oh, hey, worship pastor, I like, look at that. Oh, dang, yeah, boy. What? No, come on, man. Use some sense.
And I know people are going to listen and they're going to say, man, these guys have a sex problem. It's like his fault that they got a sex problem. I'm like, that's very true. It is not his fault at all that, that men who follow him on social media might have a pornographic addiction, might have a sex addiction, whatever type of addiction it is. It's not his fault. But, like, do we say that if we were to walk up and give an alcoholic a bottle of alcohol? Say, it's not my fault you got an addiction. Here, drink this. Like, you don't do that. You submit to the weakness of your brother or sister. Like, that's what we're called to do. When Paul talks about, I don't eat certain foods around people that think it's wrong to eat those foods, he doesn't eat the foods because he knows it's going to affect them in whatever kind of way.
Right.
It's the same thing. Like, yes, people that have pornographic addictions and problems in that area, like, yes, they do need to work on that. They do need to pray and they need to practice self-control and things like that. But if you're known for a worship artist who sings worship music in your content and you're trying to bless other people with
edifying
your worship
the body
music,
of Christ,
and you're edifying the body on a regular basis with this kind of thing, this isn't the place to throw that curveball. Maybe
it's not edifying.
Yeah, maybe personal friends and y'all talk about marital things and they gave you advice, or I don't know, maybe that.
Well, you see, she's at a 90-degree angle, and that's just not very conducive for full penetration. You need to be at a
yeah, I don't know. I know a lot of times in general, I think the phone's we good.
I think my earbud died.
Okay. Well, I think no, just kind of to wrap this up real quick, is that whenever you are in the public eye, you need to be very mindful about what you post. Very mindful. Because you never know how something is going to impact a person. And so you want to take all the careful measures that you can. You want to be mindful. You want to be careful. And if you desire to be verified on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, even more so. If you plan to be an elder at your church, you plan to be a deacon, you plan to be a pastor, like even so, you need to be above reproach. And so these are the things that we got to think, like, can this trip somebody up? if it can, I'm gonna pull back from it, because we are called to serve one another more than serve each other. And to me, and I know a lot of my personal friends are going to highly disagree with me on this, but I'm going to make the statement that I don't care how taboo sex is in the church. This isn't the way to fix it.
No.
This ain't the way to fix it. I mean, you can honor each other and you can celebrate with each other in that manner. And you can tell people that you honor each other in that manner. I just felt like it was really bad taste. It was very unwise, and he just shouldn't have done it. And he should take it down. On contrary to what a lot of my brothers and sisters in the faith think. I know, like I said, I got lots of friends that are.
Do you really?
Well, I got a lot
You have
of
friends.
I got a lot
Yeah.
of online friends on Twitter and Facebook and
There's a lot of people
Instagram,
that, yeah,
and they
maybe.
would a lot of them would disagree
Okay.
with me, but I really think that that is just not a good move. So,
Yeah.
if
All
you
right.
disagree, let me know in the comments. If we missed a technicality somewhere, please let us know, because I'm sure there's again, Song of Solomon. There's a lot of details in there that
Look,
would make me blush reading them in front of my kids.
yeah, look, I don't actually have a pornographic issue. I have problems in general, like any other guy, with lust. You know, you go somewhere and you see something, your thoughts just almost naturally go into that direction. It's almost impossible for us to be able to avoid that. Um, I I was at a Comic-Con yesterday, and there are people that are wearing clothes that, frankly, parents should be ashamed that they let their children go out in out of the house wearing. And then it's I have to look somewhere else, because otherwise then it's it's like, ooh, yeah, oh yeah, man, she's what, 13? Whoa, wait a minute. I come on. That's the struggle of every man. It doesn't really matter. Again, I don't struggle with watching pornography. That's not a stumbling block for me, but lustful thoughts in general is a stumbling block for every man, and that's what this does. This is a stumbling block for every man.
Yeah. So I hope, I don't know. People already came into this discussion, already had their thoughts in their minds, but I hope you at least somewhat heard the other side. If you were on the side that said, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with it. It's fine." People are making a big deal out of it. Ask any youth pastor out there, and they might disagree with you.
I would even go so far as to say this: if you are a father, and we just celebrated Father's Day, especially a father of a daughter, you want to see that picture of your baby girl up on social media?
Nah.
I'm gonna go have a conversation with this young man. If I'm gonna have a conversation with my daughter, because she knows better than to do something like that, to be a stumbling block for anybody. Yeah, okay, fine. You guys are going to do what you're going to do in the bedroom. Whatever. I expect that you should. And I pray that you guys have a wonderful personal love life. However, we're going to have words, man. I don't need to see my baby girl up on Instagram like that. There ain't. It's just uncalled for.
And this is coming from two men who have daughters, and only daughters.
Only daughters.
So yeah, take that for what it is. Shout out to everybody who supports the show. We're so grateful for Patreon supporters: Sam Blackwell, Jason Motley. You guys rock. Hopefully this is helpful for y'all too. Solomon's Porch Lord, True Strength Apparel.
That's the show.
True Strength Apparel. Make sure you go check that out as well. TrueStrengthApparel.com. If you want to support the show, you can. We do have a Patreon. Patreon.com/Solomon's Porch Podcast. You can do a monthly subscription, or not really subscription, because you don't get anything other than the show.
Which you get for free anyway.
Yeah. So, go follow us on Instagram. Just look up Solomon's Porch Podcast. We got a lot of stuff up there that we post. I try to do something at least once a day. It's usually comic book related. Just because I don't know, posting a lot of typical Christian stuff. Unless it's something funny, maybe I'll share it. But usually our social media is more for the comical space, like the serious, deep discussion type things. That's more for the show, the podcast, the YouTube channel. And yeah, man. So I guess that's
Like,
it.
why didn't Spider-Man realize that Nick Fury was actually Mace Windu if he's such a Star Wars fan? That's a whole nother discussion because I've got a good theory on that. But that's the kind of stuff that would be posted. So
yeah, man. So yeah, we're gonna end the show out this week with Switchfoot Fluorescent. Is it lowercase on purpose?
It is.
Okay, I was just curious. I saw that and you had it in the notes, and I was like, lowercase.
Yep.
Normally, Shawn, if you don't know, obviously you don't know because you don't see the show notes. Shawn's very peculiar about how things are spelled.
Particular.
How he does certain things. He wants things to be spelled right, whether it's names, whether it's whatever. He'll tell me, he's like, "Hey man, you spelled that wrong," which I was surprised you didn't tell me I spelled Mark Wahlberg wrong earlier.
Well, it is wrong because there is an H in there. I did see it though.
Yeah,
and actually, when I spelled out the Pursuit of Happiness, I spelled it properly. And then when I was going back through and I was looking over the movie again, I was like, "Oh, it really is misspelled.
They spelled it wrong.
They did that on purpose." So then I go back and I fix it to be misspelled, and of course Google's like, "That's not right." I'm like,
Yeah,
no.
man.
Anyway,
so we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Thanks to y'all for checking this out, and we'll see you next time.